This is the second day of our Coming Out of the Broom Closet workshop, and this session is all about feminism and the political aspects of witchcraft. Okay, so I'm just going to tell you what my definition of feminism is. Feminism for me is about embracing the feminine energy. When I'm talking about the word feminine, I mean the energy of femininity and of receptiveness and passiveness and emotions and all of these things that we associate with feminine. Everybody has both of these energies, both passive and active energies in them, and it works best when we are balanced, when we honor both of these parts of ourselves. Feminism isn't just about the right to vote, and it's not just about reproductive freedom, but it's a lot more complex than that. And I want to preface everything I'm saying because in this video, I can just hear some people saying, but what about men? When we create equality for all genders, men are allowed to embrace that feminine energy because in our society, in the Western world, the feminine energy is considered bad, whether you're a male or female. So everyone benefits from feminism. It's not just women. But I am going to be talking a lot about women in this presentation, so I just wanted to make sure that you all know that I acknowledge men exist and that sometimes they have problems too. So witches have always been somewhat feminist, and witchcraft has always basically been a political movement. Calling women witches has been a reaction to women gaining power, and then sometimes women have turned to witchcraft as a reaction to being oppressed. So they kind of go hand in hand. Throughout history, this word, witch, has ignited fear and shame in people. In the Middle Ages, there were thousands of women who were arrested and burned, and the reason given for them to be arrested and burned was mainly that they were women. But during these witch hunts, thousands of women were murdered, and this genocide went on for generations. And at the end of the witch craze in Europe, it was just getting started here in the United States. So in Salem, Massachusetts, we started seeing hysteria about witchcraft as well. And during this time period, 200 women and men, mostly widows and women with bad reputations, were accused of witchcraft, and 20 of them were executed. Then we move into the history of feminism, and there are 4 waves of feminism. The first wave was in the early 1800s to the early 1900s, and this was all about women wanting to get the right to vote and the right to own property, because this was really the first step in women being able to make choices for their family and make choices to benefit themselves. And the only way that they could do that was by voting and by being able to own property. And I want to talk about a woman. Her name is Matilda Joslyn Gage. She wrote a book in 1893 called Women, Church, and State. And this kind of was a reframing of the witch hunts of Middle Ages as a misogynistic attempt by the church and the state to police female sexuality, to police women's bodies, to police reproductive function. And this book was probably the first time in written history that the word witch was used in a positive way. So by the second wave, which was the 1960s and 1980s, so now women have the right to vote, but there's still a wage gap, there's still inequality, there's still domestic abuse, there's still reproductive rights that are not being addressed. And so the second wave was all about bringing those powers to women. This is when the show Bewitched came out, and Bewitched is all about the plight of the white middle-class housewife. Samantha's magical powers is kind of paralleled by the power women were craving and working towards during that period. Not necessarily magic, but just being able to do what they wanted when they wanted. One really interesting political activist group I want to talk about is the Women's International Terrorist Conspiracy from Hell, which the acronym there is WITCH. This formed in the 60s, and their goal was to smash the patriarchy. They were a group of angry activists. They did not care about what anyone thought of them. Now, remember, this was pre-internet, so there was no way to go viral. So these women got the attention of the media by casting what they called hexes or zaps, and they did these publicly, which would draw the media's attention, and they would make it onto the news. By the third wave, which was 1990s to 2008, some people say 2012, we're seeing more about diversity and individualism. So all of these things that we talked about during the second wave, they're still important, those are still on the agenda, but It's more about being inclusive of other cultures and diversity. There's a lot more focus on intersectionality. This word was introduced by Kimberly Williams Crenshaw in 1989, and it describes the layers of oppression that women experience based on gender, race, and class. And then the current wave is more about combating sexual harassment, assault, and misogyny. This movement is classified by the use of social media, and it is defined by technology. So we're seeing a lot more widespread audience because of using tools like Twitter and Facebook and blogs and things. So we're seeing during this wave that many of the religious organizations are seeing fewer young people attending services and being part of their groups and organizations, but witchcraft is growing. There's so many more witches. Millennial witches are huge, and even older witches who are realizing their spirituality at an older age and turning away from traditional religions. I do want to leave you with one other thing. This is an acronym for witch, the word witch. And I hope that it helps you reclaim the title and it helps you feel more confident identifying with the word witch. When I think of the word witch, I think of women who are groovy and courageous and intelligent and non-conforming, women who are explorative and curious and sexually liberated, and also women who are revolutionary and independent. And so I have this acronym for you. I didn't make it up. I heard it somewhere. But it is WOMEN. Women in total control of herself. So that is what you can think of when you hear the word witch. And you can think of all the powerful women who have fought and died, in some cases, for witchcraft and for the power of the feminine energy and for the power of women. Well, thank you so much for watching.